Hello everyone, welcome to the channel where we break down all you need to know about a Fort Myers man accused of killing two women on the same day nearly 5 years ago, remained emotionless as the court read his conviction on all 6 charges, while the victims' families hugged, cried, and sighed. Wilson, 30, was convicted of first-degree murder for the deaths of Christine Melton, 35, and Diane Ruiz, 43. He was also found guilty of grand theft of Melton's car, battery on Melissa Montanez, 41, burglary of a home belonging to Kent or Fanny Amlin, and petty theft from Kent or Fanny Amlin.
Wade Wilson had a lot to say in his first and only on-camera interview since he was indicted on murder charges more than 3 years ago. And I had a lot of questions.
Did you kill Christine Melton and Diane Ruiz?
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not.
No surprise there, considering he pleaded not guilty. He seemed confident, even smug at times while sporting his orange jumpsuit and new face tattoos.
I'm not a monster. Yeah, I'm not a saint either by any means. I've made bad decisions in the past, of course.
While Wilson is accused of taking 2 lives, he claims to have tipped off investigators about a plot to kill another woman while behind bars. According to an arrest report late last year, Tristan Gendron asked Wilson to help kill the mother of his child, so his domestic abuse charges would be dropped. Wilson couldn't do it himself. He was in jail. But Gendron asked if his crew on the outside could.
He just thought that I was the person to ask for that.
This is a copy of the note Gendron wrote Wilson in jail with details of the hit job. It came with a $200,000 payout. Gendron said the money was in a safe at Gendron's funeral and cremation services in Fort Myers.
People would accept $10,000, $200,000, surely, but I'm not that type of person.
Instead, he reported it to the state attorney's office and became a sworn witness.
I don't know her personally whatsoever from a can of paint, but it doesn't matter. She's a person.
Investigators later found out there was a safe at the funeral home with cash inside, and those security codes in the note were accurate. The funeral director said the murder-for-hire charges are BS. As you might imagine, anyone tied to Wilson isn't keen on talking. The state attorney's office can't. We don't know all the evidence it has, but it's enough for prosecutors to go for the death penalty.
It doesn't worry me. It worries me only because of the level of corruption around here in Fort Myers that I was involved with.
We learned some of that evidence may include a confession, which Wilson says he was forced to make after he was charged.
When coming to jail, I knew that I had to get something out there as far as a confession because I was told to do that. Otherwise, my parents were going to be harmed. My children were going to be harmed.
Wilson's own father spoke on the record. He told investigators Wilson called him after spending the night with Christine Melton, asking for help. She was a server at a Cape Coral bar. Wilson's father said his son admitted to strangling Melton while she was sleeping and then rolled her up in a carpet. Wilson admits he met Melton at a bar the night before she was found dead and slept at her house, but claims she was alive when he left in her car. He told his dad he then picked up a lady, asked for directions, then choked her and ran her over so many times he made her look like spaghetti.
I was forced. That wasn't a call that I willingly wanted to make.
Investigators say that other woman was mother of 2, Diane Ruiz.
As far as Diane Ruiz, I never ran across her, never seen her, and there's nothing that will say otherwise than that.
Wilson only briefly mentions Ruiz and Melton in his letters, never giving these women the dignity of saying their names, just that he was set up. He talks more often about a high-profile case of another Cape Coral woman, Lauren DeMolo, who hasn't been seen since June of 2020. Wilson admits he is trying to save his life, but it will be up to a jury to figure out fact from fiction.
Are you just trying to discredit the people who are testifying against you at trial?
Absolutely not. No, I'm just trying to tell the truth.
Wilson and I covered a number of topics, more than we had time to show you and more than we could legally air. Overall, it really seemed like he is trying to bring these things up to save his own skin. Wilson's attorney filed a motion earlier this month to remove himself as counsel due to a conflict of interest. He said their relationship was so ruptured they couldn't move forward. I reached out to that attorney a number of times, but I never heard back. Wilson claims he was part of an organized crime ring. And coming up at 11, we'll tell you how that conspiracy also involved Lauren DeMolo, a local spa, and a former sheriff.
I know her family really, really wants to know what happened to her.
And I'll have more answers from Cape Coral Police, too, because I talked to them about this case as well.
Copy, I'm 1012. I'll explain to you when my partner gets here, okay? Yeah. About this morning. Say again? Yeah, I can do that, but I'm just waiting for my partner to get here. Yeah, absolutely. And here's what's going to happen. Is the car running? Shut the car off for me. It's off. I'm going to detain you until I figure out what exactly is going on.
I'm just waiting on my girlfriend, sir. I told you, I don't want to be harassed.
Wait, you don't want any trouble from me because you're on probation, okay? Okay, yeah, that's what I'm saying. So I'm going to have you step out of the car and I'm going to detain you. Not arrest. Detain you right now. Okay? And I can't have any problems. You understand me? All right. What's that? Bike 5, I'm at Joe's Crab Shack in the parking lot. I will. I give you my word. No. I have to detain you. By our procedures, I have to detain you. Because of the battery this morning. There wasn't any battery? Okay. I will. No. Just relax. Let me see the keys to the car. Let me see the keys to the car. Keys. Keys. Wait, we're not going to have any problems. Just give me the keys to the car. Wade.
Sir, I didn't do anything. Look at me.
Okay. All right.
Please.
Just wait till my partner gets here. L41, gonna need a couple more units. Don't go anywhere. Hey.
Alpha 88 being around, we're in there.
Don't do it. He's in his car.
Please state your name for the record.
Stephen Testaseca.
Mr. Testaseca, where are you employed?
I'm self-employed.
What type of work do you do?
Window and door replacement.
Are you married?
Yes, ma'am.
What is your wife's name?
Melanie.
Do you live in Fort Myers?
No, ma'am.
What city do you live in?
Lakeland.
About how far is Lakeland from Fort Myers?
2 hours.
How old are you, sir?
46.
You know someone by the name of Wade Wilson.
Yes, ma'am.
How do you know Wade Wilson?
He's my son.
How old were you when you found out you were going to be his father?
14 or 15.
How old was his mother at the time?
A year younger than me.
Now, were either of you in a position at that age to be able to raise him?
No, ma'am.
Was he placed up for adoption?
Yes, ma'am.
Who was he adopted by?
Candy and Steve Wilson.
And did they have any connection to you or Wade Wilson's mother?
You mean?
Like, how did they,
Oh,
how were they known?
they went to church with Wade's mother's parents.
So that was how they connected and ended up raising Wade Wilson?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, do they have any other children?
Yes, ma'am. 2 daughters.
And have you spoken with them on numerous occasions?
I've spoken with Candy.
And that's his adoptive mom?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, at some point, did you and Wade Wilson connect?
Yes, ma'am.
How old was Wade Wilson when he connected with you?
18.
And was he wanting to connect with you because you're his biological father?
Yes.
And up until that point, had you ever met him?
No, ma'am.
Did you end up attempting to have a relationship with him?
Yes, ma'am.
Did he seem to want to have a relationship?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, did you have phone calls often?
Yes, ma'am.
And did you have occasions where you would see each other?
No. I went up and visited him one time in Tallahassee.
Okay. Now, did he often ask you for money?
Yes, ma'am.
Did your relationship turn into a situation where he was just asking for your help?
Yes, ma'am.
I want to turn your attention to Monday, October 7th of 2019. Did Wade Wilson get in touch with you through phone call that day?
Yes, ma'am.
And what was it that he told you when he called?
The first time he said he needed help. He had done something that he couldn't take back.
Did he indicate that he and his girl had gotten into an argument?
Yes, ma'am.
And who was his girl that you were aware of at the time?
I just knew her as Mila.
And did it seem that he wanted your help because of this argument?
Yes, ma'am.
When he called you, were you actually at work?
Yes, ma'am.
Were you able to really give your attention and time to him to try to help him at that point?
No, ma'am.
So what did you tell him when he was asking for your help?
I just told him to call me back around dinner time. I'd be done working and we'd figure it out.
And did you at some point have a conversation with your wife about him getting in touch with you wanting your help?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, during the time that he was supposed to call, about what time was he supposed to call back?
I told him around dinner time.
Now, between the time he first called that day and dinner time, did you receive a call from a detective?
Yes, ma'am.
And was that detective looking for your son?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, when the detective was looking for your son, did you have any idea at that point of what had happened?
No, ma'am.
Did the detective want you to try to help them get in touch with your son?
She just gave me a number and said if he calls you back, we need to talk to him.
Okay. Now, did he end up calling you later that evening?
Yes, ma'am.
And what did he tell you in that call that evening?
The final call?
Nope, the call before the final call.
He just told me, he did something. There was 2 people gone that would not be back. He said, I'm a killer. I just told him to call me back. I just thought it was another story.
So at this point, when he says that there were 2 people that wouldn't be with us and that he was a killer, did you put a lot of weight into that?
No, ma'am.
Did you think he was just telling you a story?
He's a good storyteller.
So did he then call you back a third time?
Yes, ma'am.
What time did he call you back?
It was around 10 o'clock.
I want to go back to that dinner time call. When he talked about these 2 people who were no longer with us and that he was a killer, did he show any type of remorse?
No, ma'am.
So let's go now to the 10 o'clock call. Again, your wife knew about kind of what was going on during that day.
Yes, ma'am.
And when he called back at 10, did he go into more details about what he had told you earlier?
Yes, ma'am.
So let's start with the first girl. If you could tell the jurors, what did he tell you?
He just said he met a girl at a bar. They went back to her house, hung out for a little bit, and then she fell asleep.
What did he say happened after she fell asleep?
He said he got on top of her and choked her.
What name did he call her? Did he refer to her in a derogatory term?
He said, I choked that bitch.
Okay. And what did he say he did after he choked her?
He said he stayed in the house for a little while, and then he rolled her up and was going to try to put her in her trunk, but he couldn't lift her.
Did he say why he was unable to put her in her trunk?
He said that he felt like rigor mortis had started to set in.
And does rigor mortis make your body stiff? You didn't know?
I think so.
So he just told you that that was the reason that he couldn't lift her and get her into her trunk?
Yes, ma'am.
And when he said her trunk, it was the trunk of her car he was going to put her in?
Yes, ma'am.
So what did he tell you he did when he couldn't get her body into her own trunk?
He left her there and took her car.
What did he say about the second girl?
He said he saw her walking down the street and stopped and asked her for directions. And she got in the car with him.
What did he say happened once she got in the car with him?
He said he reached over and choked her.
And did he tell you that he choked her while he was driving?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, what did he say happened after he choked her?
He said he was looking for a place to put her body.
Did he find a place where he eventually dumped her body?
Yes, ma'am.
What did he tell you about the situation when he got to the place where he was going to dump her body?
He said that he pulled her out of the car and realized that she was still breathing.
So what did he tell you he did when he realized she's still breathing?
He said he got back in the car and ran her over until she looked like spaghetti.
As he's telling you all these things, what's his demeanor as he's telling you?
He was excited.
When you say excited, what do you mean by that?
I felt like he was wanting me to feel the way he felt about it.
Did he seem proud of it?
Yes.
Did he seem to show any kind of remorse?
No, ma'am.
And was he able to go into great detail about both of these ladies' deaths?
Yes, ma'am.
The second girl that he killed and left in this lot, did he think that she would be found?
No, ma'am.
He seemed to think he did a good job hiding her body.
Yes, ma'am.
Now, the whole time that he's telling you these details, is your wife hearing any of these details?
I had the phone on speakerphone.
Now, prior to him telling you these details, how did you feel about turning him in to law enforcement?
I initially wanted to help him.
Okay. Did you feel conflicted about giving him over to law enforcement
Yes,
initially?
ma'am.
At some point when you're talking with him,
Yes, ma'am.
what was that, sir?
He would have done it again.
Now, after he's telling you all these details, do you know where he's at when he's telling you these things?
I just knew he was in a house that he broke into when he was running from the police.
Did you know the actual address of this house he broke into?
No, ma'am.
Now, when you were talking to him and you decided that you needed to give the information to law enforcement about his whereabouts, how did you get that address from him?
I told him I was going to send him an Uber, and I needed the address of where he was.
Were you actually going to send him an Uber?
No, ma'am.
And so when you told him that you were going to send him an Uber, did he give you that address?
Yes, ma'am.
What did you then do with the address he gave you?
My wife was messaging with the officer.
Now, is your wife messaging with the officer during the course of these details that he's telling you?
The last part of them.
And so she's relaying what your son's telling you to law enforcement?
Yes, ma'am.
Giving them further details?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, again, this conversation you're having with your son is on October 7th, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
It's in the evening hours?
Yes, ma'am.
And was it your understanding that the bar, him going to the bar and meeting the first woman happened the night before?
Yes, ma'am.
So at this point, when he's giving you all this information and you're giving this information to law enforcement, had the second girl's body been found?
No, ma'am.
And did it strike that? Now, that address you said your wife then gave to law enforcement?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you remain on the phone with your son?
Yes, ma'am.
And were you on the phone with him when law enforcement showed up at that house?
Yes, ma'am.
And did you encourage him to go outside and turn himself in?
I did. I didn't want him to do anything stupid and end up getting killed. So I just told him to put his hands up and just go outside.
I have nothing further and tender this witness. Oh, I'm sorry, Your Honor, I do have one more.
Okay.
Do you see your son sitting here in the courtroom?
Yes, ma'am.
And would you describe an article of clothing he's wearing?
Dark suit.
Calls Melissa Montanez. May I approach the clerk, Your Honor? Oh, did you tell him that you weren't going to go to this house with him?
Yes, I expressed at least 3 times he was trying to convince me to go to a house I did not want to go to.
So, did you end up going with him
No.
to the house? How did he get there?
He stole my vehicle and went.
So, did you know he was going to take your vehicle?
No,
How did you find out that your vehicle was?
I saw it leaving the Buddha.
Okay. So you were stuck at the Buddha without your car?
And Amy was out there. She was watching it drive away as well, and she said, "It's okay, come to my house."
So did you end up going to her house?
Yes.
And did you spend the night at her house?
Yes.
Where did you stay?
On the couch.
Now, did you ever hear again from Wade Wilson?
At roughly 6, my phone starts either texting or calling. Around 8 something, 8:45, I start noticing and I start answering his phone calls.
Okay, so the first calls that he's making or text messages he's making, you don't receive those or talk to him at all?
I was sleeping.
When you first spoke with him, tell the jurors about how that conversation went.
When I first heard his voice, it was, "Where are you? Can I come get you?" I can't really remember, but it was more calm at first.
Okay.
As I started saying, "I want my keys, I want my car, where are you? I need to get them back," it escalated more into name calling and aggression and intimidation.
Okay. Now, let's go to where it starts to escalate. How are you able to tell that he's starting to escalate?
Raising his voice, calling me names.
What names is he calling you?
Bitch, cunt, whore, all these different names. And just, I can't remember the threats per se, but it was very intimidating.
Did he appear to sound angry?
Very angry.
Did you feel scared at this point? Yes. Now, the phone number that Judge, may I approach?
You may.
For the record, I'm showing defense counsel what's been previously marked as State's Exhibit 20. I'm going to show you State's Exhibit 20, and I just ask if you look at it and tell me if you recognize that phone number.
That is my phone number.
Okay, and is that the phone number that he was calling you and texting you?
Yes.
And at this time, the state would move 20 into evidence?
Objection, Judge. Be admitted.
At this time, the state, pursuant to a notice of intent to rely upon certification of business records, would also move 21 into evidence. If I can show the defense counsel
We want to transition and get you to Florida because Wade Wilson, the sentencing, a jury has to decide death or life in prison. We understand there's a verdict in the sentencing phase. Here's a live look at that courtroom when they are all.
Again, the state defense defendant present. Is either side going to want the jury poll? If it is, I have the polling question. That's the standard question as part of death penalty cases promulgated by the Supreme Court. So I can use that.
Yes, please.
Okay.
All right, there he is. You see the defendant. He's already been convicted for the murders of 2 victims, Melton and Ruiz. Both of these victims suffering horrible deaths, and he has just been seated with that same expression on his face throughout the guilty phase. Once he was found guilty in Florida, a jury has to determine whether or not he will be sentenced to death. They have to consider mitigating factors, aggravating factors, as well as only 8. This is not a unanimous decision for death. They only need 8 of the jurors to determine that it will be a decision for death. I believe. I'm going to confirm that now. And that is correct. So we are waiting for the jury to come in for him to learn his sentence. Let's bring in our guest, knowing I may have to cut you off, but we have psychiatrist, forensics expert, and body language analyst Yalda Safai and Deputy Public Defender Philip Dubé.
All right, please be seated.
Shoot, stay with us. Let's go back in.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I've been informed that you have reached a verdict or a decision in this matter. Is that correct? Who has the verdict form? All right. You'll pass that to the bailiff. All right, verdict form appears to be in order. We'll let the clerk publish the verdict.
In the Circuit Court of the 20th Judicial Circuit in Fort County, Florida, criminal action. State of Florida versus Wade Wilson, case number 19 CF 568. Jury verdict form, penalty phase. We, the jury, finds as follows as to the defendant, Wade Wilson, in this case. As to count 1, first-degree murder, Christine Melton. We, the jury, unanimously find that this state has established beyond a reasonable doubt that Wade Wilson was previously convicted of a felony and under sentence of imprisonment or placed on community control or on felony probation. Yes. We, the jury, find unanimously that the state has established beyond a reasonable doubt that Wade Wilson was previously convicted of another capital felony or of a felony involving the use of threat of violence to the person. Yes. We, the jury, unanimously find that the state has established beyond a reasonable doubt that the first-degree murder was especially heinous, atrocious, or cruel. Yes. We, the jury, unanimously find that the state has established beyond a reasonable doubt that the first-degree murder was committed in a cold, calculated, and premeditated manner without any pretense of moral or legal justification. No. If you, the jury, answered no to every aggravating factor listed, you have completed your deliberations. If you, the jury, answered yes to any aggravating factor listed, proceed to Section B. If fewer than 8 jurors vote for the death penalty, your recommendation must be for a penalty of life in prison without the possibility of parole. If 8 or more jurors vote for the death penalty, your recommendation must be for the death penalty. We, the jury, unanimously found the state proved 1 or more aggravating factors. Each of us has considered whether 1 or more mitigating circumstances exist. Each of us has weighed whether the proven aggravating factors are sufficient and whether the proven aggravating factors outweigh any proven mitigating circumstances. We have further considered whether Wade Wilson should be sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole or death. We, the jury, find by a vote of 9-3 that Wade Wilson should be sentenced to death. As to count 4, first-degree murder, Diane Ruiz, we, the jury, unanimously find that the state has established beyond a reasonable doubt the existence of aggravating factors. We, the jury, unanimously find that the state has established beyond a reasonable doubt that Wade Wilson was previously convicted of a felony and under sentence of imprisonment or placed on community control or on felony probation. Yes. We, the jury, unanimously find that the state has established beyond a reasonable doubt that Wade Wilson was previously convicted of another capital felony or of a felony involving the use of threat of violence to the person. Yes. We, the jury, unanimously find that the state has established beyond a reasonable doubt that the first-degree murder was especially heinous, atrocious, or cruel. Yes. We, the jury, unanimously find that the state has established beyond a reasonable doubt that the first-degree murder was committed in a cold, calculated, and premeditated manner without any pretense of moral or legal justification. Yes. If fewer than 8 jurors vote for the death penalty, your recommendation must be for a penalty of life in prison without the possibility of parole. If 8 or more jurors vote for the death penalty, your recommendation must be for the death penalty. We, the jury, unanimously found the state proved one or more aggravating factors. Each of us has considered whether one or more mitigating circumstances exist. Each of us has weighed whether the proven aggravating factors are sufficient and whether the proven aggravating factors outweigh any proven mitigating circumstances. We have further considered whether Wade Wilson should be sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole or death. We, the jury, find by a vote of 10-2 that Wade Wilson should be sentenced to death. Dated this 25th day of June 2024 in Lee County, Florida, 4-person, 234.
Want the jurors to be polled?
Yes, please.
Okay. Members of the jury, we're going to ask each of you about the jury's decisions that you have just heard. And I'm going to go juror by number. So juror, do you, juror 97, agree that the decisions as read by the clerk accurately reflect what the jury decided? Juror 97.
I'm sorry.
Okay. Do you agree that the decisions read by the clerk accurately reflect what the jury decided?
Yes.
Juror 234. Do you agree that decisions as read by the clerk accurately reflect what the jury decided?
Yes, Your Honor.
Juror number 3. Do you agree that the decisions as read by the clerk accurately reflect what the jury decided? Juror 205. Do you agree that the decisions as read by the clerk accurately reflect what the jury decided?
Yes.
Juror 101. Do you agree that the decisions as read by the clerk accurately reflect what the jury decided?
Yes.
Juror 215. Do you agree that the decisions as read by the clerk accurately reflect what the jury decided?
Yes, Your Honor.
Juror 87. Do you agree that the decisions as read by the clerk accurately reflect what the jury decided?
Yes.
Juror 362. Do you agree that the decisions as read by the clerk accurately reflect what the jury decided?
Yes, sir.
Juror 136. Do you agree that the decisions as read by the clerk accurately reflect what the jury decided?
Yes, sir.
Juror 193. Do you agree that the decisions as read by the clerk accurately reflect what the jury decided?
Yes, sir.
Juror 315. Do you agree that the decisions as read by the clerk accurately reflect what the jury decided?
Yes.
Juror 309. Do you agree that the decisions as read by the clerk accurately reflect what the jury decided?
Yes, Your Honor.
Ladies and gentlemen, I wish to thank you for your time and consideration of this case. I also wish to advise you of some very special privileges enjoyed by jurors. No juror can ever be required to talk about the discussions that occurred in the jury room except by court order. For many centuries, our society has relied upon juries for consideration of difficult cases. We've recognized...
All right, the judge is thanking the jury. We're going to leave it here so we can...